if there's a slump in NEMT, then focus more on the DME side, and you're already got the drivers and vehicles set up to do it.
Certain brokers in certain regions can take a very long time to allow newer NEMTs to operate in those different areas. What else can I use this infrastructure for? What else can I use this fleet for?
Welcome back to NEMT Experts. Today, I've got a guest who comes from an ancillary industry to NEMT, Price Wooding, who is a consultant in the DME industry, durable medical equipment, and a consultant in NEMT. Price, how you doing?
Doing very well today. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on with us. So, Price, can you just give an overview of what is the DME business? What is the DME industry?
Absolutely. So durable medical equipment, also touching into home medical equipment, are those medical products prescribed to you by a physician that have a durable quality about them, meaning that they are designed and intended to be used over a specific period of time for the conditions they are prescribed for. They're also very well translated with home medical equipment, which specializes more into those pieces of equipment that are primarily used solely in the home.
Okay. Can you give us some examples of these kinds of equipment?
Absolutely. We're thinking everything from wheelchairs, glucose monitors, to braces, the supplies that you would get shipped to you in terms of incontinence supplies or ostomy, urologic. Anything that is a device or piece of equipment that is prescribable to you generally will fall into that durable medical equipment range. So if you've ever received even crutches when you are exiting a hospital, of course, that is durable medical equipment. The wheelchair is durable medical equipment. The brace that you might have had on your knee is qualified as in that durable medical equipment, prosthetics, orthotics, and supplies category, all meeting the same kind of functionality for the reasons of prescribing.
Okay, cool. And Price, you consult businesses that do both NEMT and DME, durable medical equipment, because there's a lot of overlap in, the sort of fundamental, like you got to transport, a person who's, wheelchair bound, you got to transport equipment that is for people who may be wheelchair bound or have, one of the other needs that you mentioned. Can you talk to us a bit about what is really the overlap between NEMT and DME?
Sure. So of course, you're going to have some overlap in just experience with some DME, depending on, of course, the types of rides offered by different NEMT providers. If you are offering rides that are wheelchair acceptable, you will normally, of course, be dealing with different kinds of DME that patients will be bringing with them to their qualified ride or appointments. So, of course, you'll be working not only with the wheelchair, you're working with any kind of accessories, potentially oxygen equipment that's associated with the patient, other ambulatory supplies, and you will definitely be working with patients using these supplies. There are mechanisms, of course, for NEMTs to be a bit more involved with DME if that is something that that business wants to go down the route of. But just in general operation, of course, there's going to be experience with just the kinds of products that their patients are going to be using in their life that, of course, will be taken with them during those rides.
Okay. So tell me this, let's say you have a business out there that's an NEMT business. They own a handful of, wheelchair accessible vans. They're transporting passengers. In the DME business, if they were interested in getting into that, they would be essentially be transporting these pieces of medical equipment, right?
That is definitely an option that they can look into in expanding what they're able to do with their business to support their current patients, additional patients, and allow for more optionality in that business. While, of course, they could decide to go down the route of becoming a full, robust, durable medical equipment facility, supplying those products to patients, billing their insurance providers and receiving that reimbursement, becoming that full, robust product expert in what they're providing. They're also able to take a portion of that, which they are specialized in currently, that transportation aspect of everything, and being able to become a sub-accredited type of ancillary support for durable medical equipment businesses. They become the expert in that transportation and delivery of the equipment that is going from the DME supplier to the end patient. So they're using their expertise to round out the services being provided by the DME to make sure that patient receives the best care possible.
Okay, gotcha. So can you give us sort of examples of maybe some of the clients that you've consulted for, Price, that do both NEMT and DME work?
Absolutely. So of course, when you're working in a area that you have an understanding of Medicaid participation, you want to work with Medicaid patients in your state. Those are definitely two options of businesses that allow you to work with beneficiaries of those Medicaid programs, which of course, if you are trying to build out as many ways to support your patients in that area, these are businesses that you can start simultaneously that can operate under the same umbrella, able to help patients in the roundest scope of care possible. When you're looking at a current NEMT provider and clients of mine that have wanted to support DME in some way or trying to figure out how they are able to scale businesses, start their own to work into DME, there is that lesser known option, which is a sub-accreditation. And that meaning that instead of the full DME POS accreditation steps, enrollment with insurance providers that a robust standalone DME would go through, an NEMT business is able to structure out just part of that service. So while a normal DME would, of course, be responsible for intaking a patient, ordering those supplies, delivering the supplies to the patient, making sure all those supplies are stored appropriately, handled appropriately on the site, dispensed appropriately, going through all of the prescription information, doctor's orders to ensure current eligibility and coverage, all of that back-end administration work, and of course, understanding those products better than anyone else. And then going through the stages of delivery and billing, all those steps are generally associated with that DME facility. The NEMT who desires to work with a durable medical equipment facility can take just a portion of that overall process, which is that delivery portion, and being able to be a sub-accredited type of business, going through the inspection process of only that delivery mechanism in order to be able to then take on the delivery role of that DME supplier to take equipment from their warehouse directly to the patient.
Okay, gotcha. Can you do this for me? Paint me like sort of a day in the life of a business that's transporting passengers, and then transporting medical equipment. Like, what does that even look like? A vehicle's out there, takes a wheelchair, bound passenger to a medical appointment, and then, another part of their day is maybe transporting medical equipment. Like, how does that actually sort of play out, like in an actual day?
There would definitely need to be some separation in those business structures of what organization is providing rides to patients, the organization providing that equipment delivery. Usually in these situations, we do want to have those separation. We want to make sure that they're not the same name, same entity that's providing both. Generally, the structure is best for those to start scaling those businesses as they already have the infrastructure to support it. It's a way of kind of grabbing the hem of the garment of another part of the industry without the investment cost, staffing cost, not only operational cost, but needing the, all the setup of that DME that's required. Instead of having all of that they'd have to go through, they use their own already set up infrastructure to be able to support a small piece of that. So generally, when you're doing both patient rides and you'd be supporting a DME as a subcontracted or sub-accredited delivery support, you would be looking at those as two separate businesses. You would not be seeing, the same type of ride, of course, in the same area. You would be wanting to make sure that you are separating those in order to make sure that you are operating in the correct standards that you need to adhere to as that ancillary sub-accredited delivery service.
Okay. And in this sort of vision between a business that's doing both NEMT and DME, like, is it that, the vehicles and drivers who are doing NEMT, like, are those, necessarily separate from the ones that are doing the DME, or can you have the same, driver and vehicle that does a passenger, trip in one day also do a medical equipment trip, in the same day?
If you have the right agreements in place, you structure that well with your attorney, absolutely. You could have that combined and do that during the same day, as long as that structure has been put into place where you have a ability for those employees to work for both entities.
Okay, gotcha. Um, I guess, a sort of fundamental question here is like, let's say there's an NEMT business and they discover that, hey, DME is a thing, right? Like, why would they want to diversify their business into DME? Like, is it oftentimes, more profitable than, average NEMT rides, or are there other, sort of benefits to it, like, the stability of the business, or what is it about DME that makes it sort of attractive for NEMT businesses to diversify into it?
It's generally one of those types of businesses that you become aware of as you see patients using the products that they've been given by different DME suppliers. As that business that is providing them transportation, you're seeing how they're using it in and out of vehicles, how they're getting to their areas of being dropped off or being picked up. When you're operating in other ancillary businesses in healthcare, you can understand the pain points that your patients have been experiencing in other parts of those ancillary businesses. Seeing that generally, when you start businesses in healthcare with that patient prioritization, whenever you can have the ability to support the care of your patients in a better way, you want to be able to provide that. If you're seeing a business operate where you know that you can do better, you generally want to make sure that you can support your patients in a better way than they currently are. And because you have that constant interaction with patients, you have time in the vehicles, there's conversations that happen, you understand that there's a lot of issues that come with getting DME. It's also the representation of your healthcare experience that lives in the home with you. So no matter what happened in the clinic or with the physician, the DME is that kind of constant representation of the experience that you had, which is why even, with clinics that dispense DME, even when they've had a wonderful in-clinic experience, if the DME was provided to them in any kind of way that would cause an issue, complaints will be always given to that clinic. Is DME provided is usually that largest reason of complaints, because it stays with you in your home and you can always have that visual representation of it. So DMEs that can, or I'm sorry, NEMTs that are able to see what their patients need, using that knowledge, or if we also provided them with this equipment, we'd have an even better understanding of how we can support them more. You can find those unmet needs a lot easier, being able to see that if patients have, a reason for needing certain kinds of DME, most likely they would need other kinds of services. Being able to support them in that journey more holistically is always that main goal for any kind of ancillary healthcare company.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. So, I mean, a simplification, maybe an oversimplification, is like, you're an NEMT business, you're transporting this patient, to their medical appointment and back. While you've got them in the vehicle, you discover, oh, like, this patient needs this piece of medical equipment also transported to their home, or something of that sort. Okay, I can transport that for you too, instead of just transporting you as the passenger.
Potentially, of course, with the rides that they're providing, they usually have to transport any equipment that comes with that patient they're using for ambulatory reasons, especially if they're already capturing those types of rides. But it is one of those, pieces that they also want to be able to keep a bit more consistency throughout that level of care that their patients are receiving. So they're able to have more control over the kinds of equipment that patient is receiving. If they know that they are going to be needing rides pretty frequently and they have a specific kind of ambulatory aid that is just very difficult to continually load or unload, or just is not being seen to be supporting them anymore. Maybe it is a product that was provided years prior that no longer meets the functionality, but because they don't have a ongoing, individual that is noticing this, it kind of just gets swept under the rug or isn't paid attention to. Being able to have that visualization of exactly how they're experiencing the equipment that's been prescribed to them over time allows you to know when something else is going to be necessary, and really just focusing on unmet needs being that kind of guiding light, or at least the influence behind wanting to make sure you can provide as much as possible, being able to spot those unmet needs.
Right, right. And this sort of plays into, or partially answers, I mean, my next question, which is, let's say you're an NEMT business and you want to get into DME, like, what are your sort of sources of getting DME work? And like the prime one is what you've been explaining, is that you've got these passengers who you're already transporting. Those same passengers need you to transport for, their durable medical equipment. But aside from just talking with the patients that you're already transporting and seeing what their further needs are, what are sort of the other main ways that transportation businesses find DME work to do?
They really have to prioritize reaching out to other businesses with that service offering. If they want to become that delivery support for established DME suppliers, for instance, they are going to want to be able to reach out to those suppliers with the knowledge of the services they can offer, as it's a much lesser known availability within DME, NEMT, ancillary healthcare businesses in general. It is not routinely a service offering that is out there. Many DMEs don't know about it being an option of them to contract out, which is a ability of DMEs to do, of course, is to contract that delivery portion and certain other portions of the services DMEs provide to other businesses. It allows DMEs, which is a great selling point for the NEMT that offers this kind of service. It's a great ability for DMEs that do not have that delivery capability. If they are focusing on product categories which routinely direct ship to a patient's home, if you're thinking about glucose monitors, residually ordered, routinely ordered supplies that are shipped directly from either a facility warehouse or distributor using FedEx or USPS, UPS directly to a patient's home, sometimes those DME providers who have structured their businesses that way do not have the ability or the funds to set up their own delivery infrastructure, hire individuals, purchase vehicles, create that fleet. So being able to utilize an established fleet with drivers that have experience in healthcare, have been going through that training, have received an accreditation for the ability to dispense or to be able to deliver that DME, is going to be an ability for that DME that's being reached out to expand their service lines, to expand their product categories that they're offering, to really grow their business. So it's not only a great way to make sure that you are supporting the patients that you currently have as an NEMT, but you're demonstrating huge value to other DMEs in your area, other kinds of ancillary healthcare businesses, in ability to collaborate and grow their businesses at the same time.
Gotcha. Price, one of the things I like to do in these interviews is story time.
Sure.
So that it's like our viewers can get a picture of how this is played out for, others. Can you give us a story of one of the clients that you've consulted for that, maybe was doing one or the other, DME or NEMT, and diversified into the other one? Like, if you can give an example of someone who is in NEMT and then they started diversifying into DME work. Like, obviously you don't have to give the name of the client, but can you just tell us, like, what that business was, how it was doing, how they discovered DME, how they started doing it, how it played out for them?
Sure.
Can you just give us a story?
So I've had a couple clients in both kind of situations, starting from either business. When we have clients I've had start from the NEMT route, couple vehicles, very small fleet, very well connected to their community that they're serving, and they have been seeing generally just a lack of patient care for DME dispensing. The conversations that are had during the rides, the engagement with their community has shown that they have, not been receiving their DME appropriately in the correct time frames. It's been taking too long. This patient has been saying that, my wheelchair was ordered a couple weeks ago and I still can't find a supplier to bring it to me. A very common complaint by those who are receiving prescriptions of DME written by a clinic or a hospital that does not dispense that DME themselves, gives them a list of phone numbers to call other providers and says, please call these people and have your wheelchair ordered for you. And maybe none take their insurance, none are in the area, some are closed, and there's not really a great way of getting that DME to the patients that they're serving. Seeing that unmet need and seeing that availability to support their patients a bit more, they have investigated the route of being able to supply DME to their patients, understood that it is, of course, a large, robust kind of a business with a lot of regulation and oversight that they need to adhere to and prioritize as they're forming the business and as they're operating. Of course, with the infrastructure already in place, many times as those kinds of businesses, NEMTs that are interested in DME, we have discussed that sub-accreditation option, the ability to accredit themselves as a delivery support for DMEs. And instead of becoming their own robust standalone DME that is going to be billing insurance for the products delivered to patients, instead they're working with those DME suppliers to make sure that they are getting that equipment to the patients as quickly as possible in the appropriate time frames, depending on the equipment, and that they are able to support those DMEs in their area as well and be more engaged with the community, not only with their patients, but now with other businesses, to just be able to become much more involved in that community. There have also been, of course, clients that have started from NEMT that have desired to be more robust DMEs and start their own entities as a standalone DME supplier as well, and being able to have much more engagement with their community by offering, of course, rides in their NEMT business and DME in their durable medical equipment business. Of course, with those, you can also look at other ancillary healthcare businesses if they want to round out their scope of care even more. You can start, many other types of those businesses, such as home health care, adult daycare. There are many types of other boutique and specialized ways you can do that. If you have, of course, different certified and professional licensure, you can start more orthotics, prosthetics centered types of businesses. And it all can be done by simply strategic hiring as well. If you are able to find individuals that you can bring onto your business that have those certifications, you're able to, see a lot more avenues as potentially able to go down. For businesses that have started as DMEs that are able to then see NEMT as a desired, business path to go forward, generally those are when you're having a DME that is working more with their state Medicaid program. And they are doing that because they are delivering locally. They are centered around their community. They have product specializations that have given them a place in that ancillary healthcare business environment locally. And of course, because they're able to do that, they have vehicles that have been used to deliver those products. And many times as they are working with patients, they have developed an understanding, because they have a good touch point and communication with their patients as well, that they have encountered problems finding rides to and from different appointments. It's very common as a DME supplier that you are discussing with patients when their next appointments are, when their next ability to get to that appointment is. And many times throughout that conversation, you'll hear that they have a very difficult, situation of getting a ride to that. And when you have more and more of those calls, you can see more and more of a need of, well, if there is, a lot of our community members unable to get to their doctor's appointments or other kinds of covered rides, then there's definitely an option of being able to start a business to support that. When you're working in any of these kinds of ancillary businesses, it really is the best way of seeing where you have the most need in those other kinds of businesses.
Yeah. And, so one way I think about a business that wants to scale, like a transportation business, and, so correct me here, but think of an NEMT business that, they have any number of vehicles and they want to scale. They would need to transport more and more passengers, right? And grow the number of passengers they're transporting. And that's one way to scale the business. But another way to scale is to say, okay, we're already transporting this number of passengers, but we can also do more for those passengers by transporting their durable medical equipment. So without increasing the number of passengers, you're doing more different kind of work for your existing set of passengers.
Potentially, it would be very much, you would be doing very different rides. For the same passengers, of course, it would be depending on what their physicians have ordered for them. If they are going to be receiving DME ordered by a DME supplier to be then provided to that patient. In a lot of ways, you'll be expanding your total patient base in a way. By now, you'll be working with the patients of those DME suppliers that you are providing those ancillary delivery services for. So you're also able to, of course, increase your potential patient base of just NEMT rides, as you're now going to be working with a large swath of patients that you would not maybe necessarily have been working with before.
Right, right. And, diversification, is generally a good thing, right? Like a business that does both NEMT and DME, if there's ever, sort of a slump on one side, hey, well, if there's a slump in NEMT, then focus more on the DME side. And you're already got the drivers and vehicles set up to do it. So there you go.
It's also one of those options when you are, setting up businesses for either NEMT or DME. As you're very aware, certain brokers in certain regions can take a very long time to allow newer NEMTs to operate in those different areas, depending on saturation of other businesses already providing similar types of rides in that area. In those kinds of situations, it is definitely advantageous to be able to understand what else can I use this infrastructure for? What else can I use this fleet for? The insurance costs around, those kinds of fleets are astronomical and only rising. So the ability to see that fleet and see the potential for additional support is, I would say, a nice peace of mind, at least as you are sitting in those hurry up and wait points.
Absolutely. Price, what else have I not asked you that I should be asking?
While it does sound, as we've been talking so far, a very easily adoptable transition from one to the other, I do need to, of course, stress that these are very regulated entities and that they need to be treated with very strict care when you're looking at the separation between them, how to structure employment if there is going to be any kind of shared employees between the two. If you are looking at, of course, a robust DME facility, you're looking to start as an operating NEMT provider, there are physical location requirements, signage requirements, staffing requirements that all need to be understood before you are going down that route. While it definitely is a business that I recommend those working in NEMT to investigate and understand, it is definitely one that should not be approached lightly, nor from a place of only seeing revenue potential and those, reimbursement billables that CMS offers on their fee schedule and many other commercial insurance carriers offer on their fee schedule, but instead seeing it as a way to round out your scope of care, being able to provide as much service possible for your community to help your patients as much as you can. If you're seeing unmet needs, you want to take care of them. That's the best way to start this business sustainably and continue it with actual profitability, is by making sure it's prioritizing that patient care.
And I probably should have done this closer to the beginning of the conversation, but Price, can you tell us about your background and how you got into consulting for DME and NEMT?
Absolutely. So I have been in the durable medical equipment industry for about 15 years. It was an industry that I entered immediately after high school, having found a position as a operations manager off of the wonderful job search tool of Craigslist back in the day, and have stuck with that pretty much my entire adult life since. I have owned and operated different DME facilities in Southern California. I have worked as DME manager with larger orthopedic clinics. I have worked in insurance as well. I have owned and operated in Denver, Colorado, where I currently am. Over the past few years, primarily since the end of 2020, and a lot of the issues that occurred with DME surrounding some of the regulation that went into place during that time, I started doing consulting as full-time over the past couple of years to really allow for the flattening of the learning curve as much as I possibly can help do so for those kinds of entrepreneurs and individuals who want to start these businesses with that patient care and prioritization mindset, really showing that as these are businesses that can attract different kinds of ownership where they see that revenue potential only, want to target different product categories because of that margin capability. It is something that needs to be, understood that this is not the kind of business to do that with. Looking at where we've had, Operation Brace Yourself, a lot of other OIG investigations around certain categories of equipment and businesses using them that were dispensing very non-compliantly because you had a very easy dispensing process. You had that with, back braces and knee braces, where you could see a very large reimbursement with a very small cost of equipment. And because of that, there was a lot of fraud that occurred with those categories. So when you have businesses that are prioritizing patient care, that really have the right mindset going down this route, it was my intention to be able to smooth that process out as much as possible, teach them as much as I can from my experience in the industry, and set up for success as much as I can with the connections that I have in different facets of the industry, and able to connect them with the appropriate services that can allow them to scale the business or be able to provide that kind of service in the best way possible.
Awesome. Awesome. And your website is dmeforme.org.
That's correct.
Meaning you got there in the background. For everyone watching, I'm going to be putting Price's contact info in the description of this video. Price, thank you so much for being with us and sharing everything.
Run, Bambi, run.
Awesome. Thanks, Price.
My pleasure.